For over 40 years, Harold Bennett had lived in the same quiet house at the end of Maple Grove Lane, where the days moved gently and nothing ever seemed in a hurry to change. At 73, Harold had become a man of habits. He woke before sunrise, brewed coffee in the same chipped blue mug, watched the morning news with the volume low, and stepped into the backyard to tend his roses before the heat settled over the neighborhood. His garden was his pride. Trimmed hedges, clean stone paths, flower beds arranged with careful symmetry. Eleanor had always teased him for treating the yard like a museum. "You don't grow roses, Harold," she used to say. "You supervise them." He could still hear her voice sometimes. That was the hardest part. 2 years had passed since Eleanor died at 68 after a quiet, cruel battle with cancer. Harold had not fallen apart in any dramatic way. He did not rage, drink, or curse God. Instead, he became smaller inside. He kept the house spotless because Eleanor had liked things neat. He folded laundry even though there was less of it. Sometimes, without thinking, he set 2 plates at the dinner table. Then he would stand there, staring at the mistake. The house remained unchanged, but everything inside it felt hollow. For weeks, the house next door had been empty, and Harold had enjoyed the stillness. No music through the walls, no children running through lawns, no strangers waving too eagerly from driveways. Then one morning, a moving truck arrived. Harold watched from behind his curtains as workers carried in boxes, lamps, chairs, and old wooden furniture wrapped in blankets. Near noon, a woman stepped into the yard. She looked to be in her mid-60s with short silver hair, rolled up sleeves, and the purposeful walk of someone who did not wait for permission to begin again. By the next day, the noise started. Hammering, sawing, scraping ladders, the clatter of tools. Harold sat in his living room, jaw tight, turning the television louder each time another sound interrupted the silence. Through the window, he watched her transform the yard. The plain flower beds were dug up, new soil was spread, wind chimes appeared on the porch, singing every time the breeze passed through. She was making the place hers. Harold disliked her for it, before he even knew her name. One afternoon, she waved over the fence. "Beautiful roses," she called. Harold gave a stiff nod. "Thank you. I'm Margaret," she said warmly. Harold. He turned away before she could say more. He knew it was rude. Eleanor would have nudged him afterward and whispered, "Be kind." But kindness required conversation, and conversation led to stories, and stories led to the past. Harold had spent 2 years keeping the past sealed in careful boxes. Margaret, however, did not seem easily discouraged. A few days later, she caught him near the mailbox. "I hope the noise hasn't been too terrible," she said. "I'm just trying to fix the place up." "It's your house," Harold replied. She smiled. "Still, I know peace matters." He looked at her then, only briefly, and there was something in her face. Not cheerfulness exactly, but effort, as if smiling had become a choice she practiced daily. Harold nodded once and went inside. Then came the storm. It arrived without warning on a gray afternoon, dragging black clouds across the sky. Wind bent the trees low, rain struck the windows in silver sheets, and thunder rolled over Maple Grove Lane like furniture being dragged across heaven. Harold stood at the back door, watching his garden shudder beneath the force of it. His roses whipped in the wind, and the old fence between his yard and Margaret's groaned. Then came a sharp crack. Wood splintered, panels collapsed. By morning, the boundary between their yards lay scattered across the wet grass. Harold stepped outside in his old work boots, hands in his pockets, staring at the damage with quiet frustration. Margaret was already there, leaning beside a broken post. "Well," she said, brushing mud from her hands, "I suppose we don't have much of a choice." Harold looked at the ruined fence, then at her. "No," he said, "I suppose not." They worked in silence at first. Harold brought out tools from his shed, while Margaret gathered boards. They lifted panels, measured posts, and sorted what could still be used. Harold expected her to talk too much, but she didn't. She worked steadily, without complaint. After an hour, she said, "My husband would have loved this." Harold paused. "He was useless with tools," she continued, smiling faintly, "but he always insisted he was helping." Despite himself, Harold almost smiled. Margaret pressed the board into place. "He passed 2 years ago." The air shifted. Harold lowered his hammer. "My wife too," he said quietly. 2 years. Margaret looked at him then, not with pity, but recognition. "I'm sorry," she said. Harold nodded. "Cancer. Heart failure," Margaret replied. Sudden, one moment he was there, and then he wasn't. Rainwater dripped from the broken fence into the grass between them. For a while, neither spoke. Then Harold said, "Eleanor was sick a long time. I thought that would make it easier. Margaret's expression softened. It doesn't. No, Harold said. It doesn't. The words surprised him. He had not spoken Eleanor's name aloud to anyone in months. Hearing it in the open air hurt, but not as sharply as he expected. He continued working. As the afternoon warmed, pieces of their lives came out in small, careful fragments. Margaret had lived in the city with her husband Paul. After he died, the apartment felt too crowded with memories, too full of noise that had nothing to do with him. So she sold it and moved to Maple Grove Lane, hoping that some quiet might help. Harold told her Eleanor had chosen the rose bushes herself, that she liked yellow ones best, that she had made him repaint the porch swing green because she said brown made the whole house look tired. Margaret laughed at that. It was a small laugh, but it startled Harold. He had forgotten how another person's laughter could change the temperature of a day. By late afternoon, the fence stood again. It was not perfect. One panel leaned slightly, and the new posts didn't match the old ones. But it was steady. Margaret stepped back and wiped her forehead with her sleeve. "Looks like we make a decent team," she said. Harold looked at the fence, then at her. "I suppose we do." This time, he smiled. That evening, Harold stood alone in his kitchen. The house was quiet as always, but something about the silence had changed. It no longer felt like a locked room. It felt like a room with a window cracked open. He opened the cabinet and took down a pot. For the first time in a long while, he cooked not because he had to eat, but because he wanted to share something. He made Eleanor's chicken stew, the one with carrots, thyme, and too much pepper, because that was how she liked it. Then he carried the dish next door. Margaret opened the door, surprised. Harold cleared his throat. "I made too much dinner." She looked at the covered dish, then back at him. "I thought," he added awkwardly, "you might like some." Margaret's face softened into a smile. "I'd like that very much." They ate at Harold's kitchen table, where only one plate had sat for 2 years. At first, the conversation moved slowly, then it became easier. They spoke about Eleanor and Paul, about bad knees, stubborn flowers, old neighborhoods, and how grief made even ordinary mornings feel unfamiliar. It was not romance, not yet. It was gentler than that. It was two people sitting across from each other, realizing they had both mistaken loneliness for loyalty. Later, after Margaret went home, Harold washed the dishes and left them to dry beside the sink. Before turning off the kitchen light, he looked at the table. Only one plate remained there now, but for the first time in 2 years, the empty chair did not feel like an accusation. Outside, the repaired fence stood between the 2 yards, not as a wall anymore, but as something shared. And Harold, standing in the soft quiet of his old house, understood that moving forward did not mean leaving Eleanor behind. Sometimes it only meant opening the door when life knocked gently enough. For now, that was enough.